When the film for Ernest Cline's Ready Player One was released in 2018, the 1980s culture had come back stronger than ever. Fans felt nostalgic for the 80s clothing and the countless movie references. In honor of Ernest Cline's announcement of a sequel novel, Ready Player 2, get the scoop on how Ready Player One brought back the 80s. Please take a second to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Sarah's Scoop. Film summary. Ready Player One follows Wade Watts, an orphan from Ohio living with his aunt in a trailer park called the Stacks in the year 2045. The world seeks refuge in a virtual reality world called the Oasis, created by Gregorius Games, formed by James Halliday and Ogden Morrow. After Halliday dies, he leaves behind a message to all the members of the Oasis. He has left 3 keys to 3 gates that had led to an Easter egg. The player that finds the egg will gain control of the entire Oasis. Wade's avatar, Parsival, as well as Artemis, H, Daito, and Sho reach the first key close together, becoming known as the High Five on the scoreboard. They band together to get through the gates before the Sixers, who work for the IOI company, trying to sell the Oasis for advertisement revenue. The Sixers and IOI come after the High Five in real life as well as the game, forcing them to band together in the real world. While on the run, they fight with the rest of the Oasis against the Sixers. IOI released a catalyst bomb, knocking out anyone on the battlefield except Parsival, who was given an extra life token earlier in the film. He figures out the last gate and receives the last egg from Halliday's avatar and gains control over the Oasis. He shares ownership with the rest of the High Five and Morrow, bringing back the 80s. Number 1. Steven Spielberg. Ready Player One is directed by the one and only Steven Spielberg. Spielberg also helped produce the film. The movie, like the novel, is full of cultural references from the 1970s to present day. Steven Spielberg and producer Christy Krager worked for several years before the film began production to secure copyrights to use in the film. By the end of filming, they gained about 80% of the copyrights they desired. Spielberg wanted to avoid using references from his own films out of fear of backlash. Ernest Cline eventually convinced Steven to use some iconic elements, such as the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Number 2. Music. Fans of the movie and nostalgic parents loved the 80s and futuristic soundtrack. Like the movie, the soundtrack was filled with subtle references, such as the main themes to The Shining and Back to the Future. Besides futuristic background music, the film features hits from the 80s. Some well-known songs are Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears, Stand on It by Bruce Springsteen, One Way or Another by Blondie, Stayin' Alive by Bee Gees, We're Not Gonna Take It by Twisted Sister, You Make My Dreams by Hall & Oates, and Pure Imagination by Brian Nugent. Number 3. Cultural references. There are well over 100 cultural references throughout the film. There are well-known figures in the film, such as the Iron Giant, King Kong, and the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. The film also has references in the dialogue, such as Buckaroo Banzai and Shermer High School used by John Hughes. It also contains a dance reference. At a nightclub, Artemis and Parsival dance in the style of Saturday Night Fever. Steven Spielberg secured the rights that the High Five can play through The Shining, as he was friends with Stanley Kubrick. Number 4. Visual effects. The visual effects for Ready Player One were produced by Industrial Light and Magic, Digital Domain, Territory Studio, and the Third Floor. Spielberg would have several-hour meetings a few times a week with the visual effects team. 80 out of 140 minutes takes place in the Oasis. The part of the film that took place in the digital world of The Shining was mostly a digital recreation of the film, with some of the Shining footage used. The same technique was used to recreate Back to the Future's DeLorean, the Iron Giant, Chucky, and King Kong. Number 5. Style. The style of characters and rooms in the film brings back the vintage 80s feeling with a futuristic flair. The High Five's avatars, as well as other avatars in the Oasis, dress in an 80s teen style. When Parsival is getting ready to see Artemis at a nightclub, he dresses like his favorite 80s movie character, Buckaroo Banzai. The High Five dress in an 80s style in the real world as well. Ready Player 2. Ernest Cline announced there will be a sequel novel titled Ready Player 2 available November 24th. Ready Player One brought back the 80s with its style and cultural references. Fans are excited to see how Ready Player 2 will continue Wade Watts' story and have no doubt that it will be full of cultural references as well.
Thank you for watching. Head to sarahscoop.com for more of the scoop on your favorite things.